to certainly.
The UK Championships produced some great performances out of a number of different players, but who had the best shot of the entire tournament? I've selected the 16 best shots, and as usual I'm going to find out by attempting to recreate all of them as accurately as possible and in the fewest possible attempts. And we're beginning with eventual tournament winner Mark Allen, who continued his great start to the season with a win over Ding Junhui in the final. But what we're really interested in is this thin cut he played on the red to get back safe when he was 4-1 down. I wasn't expecting this one to be so difficult because you don't really have to do a lot with it, it's just a thin cut. However, it was really tough to find the right angle, and it was a difficult one to play accurately off the bolt cushion, so it was definitely a lot harder than I thought it would be. I was slowly getting closer with this until eventually on my fourth attempt I managed to pot the red. The cue ball didn't really go perfect, but I was pretty happy to get it in this time.
Although Jack may have only been metaphorically flying, he certainly pulled out a few good performances, especially in this game against Hossein Vafaei.
Although the pot on the black here isn't too difficult, you've got to be incredibly accurate with the cue ball if you want to push the red over the pocket. And unfortunately, I had an absolute nightmare with this shot. Maybe it was because I'm right-handed and had to put my left hand slightly on the cushion to play it. I'm not too sure, but I couldn't really get the cue ball going in the direction I wanted it to, and kept missing the red by quite a long way. I definitely thought this was an easier shot than I was making it look, so I was relieved to finally get it just about good enough on my 7th attempt.
Now for your classic Mark Selby pot and screw back safe.
And I say that because it seems like every tournament I'm playing a shot like this from Mark Selby. Even though my first attempt on this one went horribly wrong, it did seem a little bit easier than some previous shots I've had to try like this, as getting the cue ball back to bolt wasn't really that much of a problem. All I had to do was pot the red. I managed this in 4 attempts, which was probably about right, even though I did go a bit far.
Jamie Clarke needed snookers against the Neil Mark Williams in this frame, and not only did he manage to get one on the pink, he also managed to pot the pink and bring the black off the cushion a few shots later.
And it's this pot that we're interested in, because Jamie would have had to play this with an exact amount of right hand side to make the angle and cannon the black off the cushion. And of course, playing a shot at this speed down the table with a bit of side means you don't just have to allow for it, you actually have to allow for it reversing a little bit. And this was a bit tricky to work out to start off with. Eventually I got the pot, but I actually just put a little bit too much side spin on the cue ball, so I missed the black. I tried to adjust this and I ended up missing the pot a couple more times, which I was a bit disappointed with because I would have liked to have got it straight away after I got the feel of it. However, it took until my 7th attempt before I potted it again, when I just about managed to get the right amount of side on it to hit it direct. I was a bit lucky with this one, but ended up perfect on the black.
Potting down the cushion isn't always that difficult, but this shot from Tom Ford certainly is. He also manages to stun this red in and hold for the blue despite being incredibly close to the top cushion.
And other than the pot being so difficult, that was what I was having trouble with on my first few shots. I wasn't able to stun it enough to hold for the blue. It meant I had to put my cue up in the air even higher, and that made the pot even more difficult. The fact that this was such a difficult and important shot as Tom Ford was able to win the match from here may cause it to do well later on. That is, if I ever manage to pot this one. So I was really happy to get it after just 7 attempts because I think it's a lot harder.
Matthew Stevens is next with what you'd probably describe as an impressive trick shot. It didn't really help him that much in his match against Ronnie in the end though.
But even so, it was a great way to get in, and I like the look of this one, especially as I fancied my chances of getting this after just 1 attempt. I was confident of getting it because this one should be no harder than escaping from a snooker really, and I even managed to get the thin contact, although I should have hit it a tiny bit harder.
Judd Trump's next, opening the reds off the blue, but the way he's playing it requires an awful lot of power and topspin.
And that's incredibly tough to do with the cue ball being so close to the side cushion. You don't really have enough room to pull your cue back, and I started just snatching at the first few a little bit, and that caused me to miss a couple of pots. Eventually I did manage to get it and powered through the pack, although I would like to have got this on my first attempt really.
Ding Junhui managed to play one of the best exhibition shots of the week in his 6-0 demolition of Ronnie O'Sullivan. Not only does he manage to double the red here, he also brings another one off the cushion at the same time.
I was surprised with this one because I thought the difficulty was going to be avoiding the double kiss, but as it turned out, the real difficulty was trying to hit it straight enough because you have to inject quite a lot of power into the cue ball. I eventually got it pretty good on my 5th attempt and was pretty happy with this one.
But Jose Fafai also manages to get the double, but also the snooker at the same time against Mark Selby, just in case it didn't go in.
I think I had the pink slightly too far down the cushion on my first attempt, so I had to adjust the angle slightly to make it work on my second. Either way, I was pretty happy to get this after just 2 attempts. So of course all that remains is for me to ask the question which was the cheekiest double. Cue the music.
Ding's shot was technically harder, but the game was already over, whereas Hossein Fafai had a shot for the game, so he's this week's winner. Another powerful shot from Luca Bressel, this time on the yellow, allows him to go on to win the frame against Tom Ford.
There were a lot of missed pots in this match, but there were also a lot of great pots, and this was definitely one of those. He manages to pot the yellow and get down the table for the green. I'm not sure if this is exactly how he played it, but I'm using a lot of topspin and a small amount of left-hand side just to widen the angle slightly to get in position. This and the power made the shot a little bit harder, but I was still pretty happy to get it after 3 attempts, even if I did hit it a bit too hard.
But Tom Ford's got some more shots of his own, especially this slow, draggy one he played against Ding.
I say draggy, but as we'll see in a minute, it's going to be absolutely vital to get enough backspin on the cue ball to get on the black. But I honestly think a thinner shot you have to play from distance with a lot of backspin is one of the hardest shots to play in the game. That's why I was happy to pot it on my 2nd attempt, even though I went in off, and in fact did exactly the same thing on my 3rd. As I said, I wasn't quite getting enough backspin on the cue ball and was dragging it a little bit too much, but I was definitely happy to get a difficult shot like this so quickly.
Jack Lazowski's turn to open the reds, and he's also finding a creative way of doing it.
Although this looks challenging to play, and it is, it's actually the type of shot we practice quite a lot because it can be incredibly useful in a game of snooker. So I was definitely confident with this one, remembering the main trick is to try not to put too much side on the cue ball, as it doesn't need very much. And although it didn't go perfectly, I still finished on a red that allowed me to get on a colour.
Luca Bressel's completing the clearance from the frame we saw earlier against Tom Ford. This time he's got a tricky blue to try and bring the pink off the cushion.
Actually, the blue really isn't that difficult, it's all about getting on the pink, and I was trying to play this in exactly the same way as Luca, where he seemed to use quite a lot of side spin and not a lot of backspin. I didn't quite get enough side on my first attempt and just pushed the pink past the middle pocket. On my second, I also failed to get enough spin on the cue ball, but this time I left the pink about as easy as I could.
We've got a Ryan Day shot coming up next after we find Poyade from Tokabon, Iran, which is there.
I was really fascinated by this shot from Ryan, as it didn't look possible to screw the cue ball all the way across the table in the way he did so easily. But after a few goes I could see it was on, but it definitely wasn't a straightforward shot, as putting that much backspin on the cue ball and trying to play it so slowly made this shot incredibly challenging. I also struggled to get the angle right on this one. It was definitely a tough shot, but I think I made it look a little harder than it actually was, so I was pleased to get it in the end.
Mark Williams may not have been in the best of health for this tournament, but he still managed to roll in some exceptional long reds, and this was one of them.
Similar to the Mark Allen shot at the beginning, this is just a good long pot. However, this one's more of a thick contact rather than the very thin contact we saw with the Mark Allen shot. Even though you don't have to do that much with the cue ball, I was still really happy to get it after just one attempt.
Shaun Murphy made some excellent pots in this ridiculous break against Jack Lazowski to force a respot. Too bad he ended up losing it in the end.
Even though this is a decent shot, I only really included it because of how crazy the break was as a whole. Shaun played several other shots that were nearly as tough as this one, but I think this one was definitely the most challenging of all of them. I nearly got it on my third attempt and eventually managed to find the correct angle for my fourth.
So for the results, I'm giving third place to Tom Ford and this well-controlled shot against Ding. He played this one really confidently. Second place goes to Mark Allen with this thin cut. Even though he didn't win this frame, this was probably the turning point in the final. But first place goes to Tom Ford. Not only is this a great pot down the cushion, it really helped his chances in the match.
But what was your favourite? Let me know down in the comments, and if you want to see more videos of me recreating shots, have a look at these two. And remember, don't just watch, play, and make the commitment to become a better player by subscribing to the channel and visit the website. See you later.